G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle, continuing off this series of content throughout the bye rounds, giving me a little bit of a chance to catch up and make some little bit more reflective as well as preview content. So just to cover off, I've done a trade rumors video, I've done a draft preview video, I've done a mid-season review earlier this week on the channel. I'm going to do a mid-season youth review, part 1 and part 2, that is going to be coming later this week. And in today's video, I thought, as per your request actually, we would do a video having a crack at forecasting what the best 23 is for the second half of this season. So as an aside, I thank you for your suggestions for content. It makes my job easier, and I obviously want to deliver content that people want. So as I say this, like if you have any more ideas for kinds of content you want to see coming up on the channel, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. But yeah, today's video is going to be about, having a look at what the second half of the year looks like from a best 23 perspective, and also take into account some injuries. So as it currently stands, I'm not too sure if Tim Kelly, Jaden Hunt, Oscar Allen are going to be available for our next game against Essendon, but I have included them as available for this best 23, looking at the second half of the year in totality. On the other hand, though, someone like an Elijah Hewitt, who ideally I think would be in the team as a player that we need to get games into, he's probably like 6 weeks away, maybe more, and therefore I haven't included him in this video. So I've come up with the 23 that I think is what I want to see from this point forward, assuming, those players are fit. So maybe it's not round 14 or 15 against Essendon, and maybe it's round 16 against Hawthorn. I think that this team could potentially come together. But we'll go through line by line, and I'll give you the team that I think is our best mix, okay? So let's start with the defenders. Now, surprise, surprise, I'm going to go with the key back combo of Barrass and McGovern. That one's obvious. Brady Hoff is also a lock for this team, which is fantastic. One of our better performers this year as well, and considering he's like 21 years old, that's fantastic going. Liam Duggan as the captain also finds his way into this team, as you'd imagine. So really, the only places I sort of thought there might have been a little bit more discussion around was the third tall position as well as the other half back spot there. So you've probably spotted, I've got Ryan Marrick in the back line here. Now, this might be wishful thinking for me. I just think, if you've been following the channel for a few weeks now, I've been talking about this height issue, and I haven't exactly solved it by bringing Marrick back, but I do think, we probably do have a glut of talls in the forward half, and I really would like to see Marrick's skill set utilised further up the field where he can actually use his foot skills more regularly. There was a really good kick inside 50, I think, in the last quarter against North Melbourne. I want to see more of that. Is he realistically a wingman? I'm not too sure. Could he play on the wing? By all means, I'm very open to that. But, Marrick has played a little bit as that sort of roaming defender. Now, I don't have him as a third tall. I've got him as a genuine running defender because regardless of his height, I think he's 196 centimeters. I don't think he could play on the opposition's third tall forward. Like, I think he still needs to develop a little bit physically. And either way, I think he's better as that roaming half back. And the person he's competing with to get into this team in this specific position is Alex Witherden. And I do probably think Witherden probably does deserve to be in our best 23. I haven't included him. I'm not a Witherden hater. I realize that I've probably undersold him a little bit. I just think, in terms of our mix and getting, games into someone that is definitely going to be around long-term in Ryan Marrick, I'm not too sure about Witherden. So if you've got two guys competing for the same spot, my personal preference is to get Marrick into that spot. That might be the most left field suggestion in this video. In fact, definitely is. But that's something I'd like to see. How realistic is it? I'm not too sure. The alternative is you just slot Witherden into this position and, Marrick either goes sub or back to the waffle. For the record, he actually hasn't played in the waffle since he debuted, if I'm not mistaken. Like his first week as an AFL listed player, he played one game in the waffle. He's been in the 23 since then, which I think is noteworthy. Simo's never dropped him before. So either way, this is just something I would like. Let's move on to the third tall position now. You could probably throw a blanket over Harry Edwards, Josh Rotham, and Callum Jamieson as for actually being the best option for us. And I think sometimes that does depend on who the opposition is. I probably prefer to see Harry Edwards not play a genuine third tall. Someone like a Rotham probably makes more sense if the opposition doesn't have a tall forward line. Nonetheless, West Coast obviously went with 3 genuine talls against North Melbourne. You probably know my thoughts on that already. But in terms of like who's got higher in the pecking order, like Jamieson played really well this year and then got injured and now is coming back through the waffle. Rotham, exact same thing. He got sick and then came back through the waffle. Harry Edwards is in the team right now, and that is why I've got his name there. So between those three, you could probably mix it up based on opposition. So let's move to the centre line, and I do not have Andrew Gaff or Dom Sheed. I think that kind of speaks for itself. I don't think those guys as senior players have done enough to warrant being in this best 23. Even if, if the grand final was tomorrow, I probably still wouldn't pick them, respectfully. respectfully. I just think on current form, they're not adding enough. So let's go with the centre line. I think Jaden Hunt, as a walk-up start, I think he's our best wing option. No doubt about that. Elliot Yeo speaks for himself as our centreman. And Ruben Jinby, I've really liked his game on the wing this year. He's, played in a variety of roles, playing a little bit more outside and with his power running and speed. I think he's come a long way and absolutely makes this team on one of the wings. Now, the other on-ballers are Tim Kelly and Harley Reid. This is probably the most simple of any of the lines to pick, was probably the midfield. And you can understand why, I map it out like that, why Dom Sheed doesn't make it. And I realise I probably don't need to tell you that. I think we all saw against North Melbourne, what happens when you take the weapons out of this midfield, i.e. Tim Kelly, Harley Reid, and of course Jaden Hunt as well with his leg speed on the outside. So you get those guys back into the team, and I think you see a much more balanced and well-rounded midfield that absolutely should be selected when fit. Now, the ruck combo is interesting here. Now, we've got a decision to make. Obviously, we've invested in Matthew Flynn as a free agent. I think individually he's come in and played reasonably well, given how much time he's had off. That forces Bailey Williams into more of a third tall second ruck position. And early days, it hasn't really clicked yet, and nor should we really maybe have expected it to click so fast. But the flow-on effect of that is how tall a forward line do you pick? Now, we've got Bailey Williams in our forward line. Do we still go with 3 talls? We probably still will. I have selected 3 talls, but it's a wait and see, considering Oscar Allen is available for this. As it currently stands, Bailey Williams retains his spot in the team. I don't think he's having an incredible year. He is still pretty young, and you could look at it this way. Matthew Flynn and Bailey Williams, they're 26 and 24, respectively. Both of these guys probably still represent the future. They're young enough, given their positions, to still be investing in the future if we pursue this combination a little bit longer. It's not necessarily flogging a dead horse. Is Bailey Williams necessarily better as a third tall second ruck than, say, a Jack Williams? Now, Jack Williams is 20. The temptation is to keep him in the side because he's young in the future, but you could argue the same of Bailey Williams, who is still only 24. So long story short, I'm going with the Flynn and Williams combo to start, but I could see some genuine competition for Bailey Williams' spot if it takes a little while to click. So let's move over to the forward line, and it looks a lot healthier with Oscar Allen, Jake Waterman lining up at centre half forward and full forward. Jack Darling takes this spot by the skin of his teeth. Okay, I think he's been okay. You could certainly make the argument maybe Jack Williams, maybe Ryan Marrick back in a bit more of his native forward role. Maybe that would be better. But I think pecking order to start with, we go with Jack Darling, see how this combination works. I'm iffy on it, but he probably just retains it for me. His competition is obviously going to be guys like Marrick and Williams, and further down the track there's Archer Reed, there's Cohen Livingston to consider as well. But I think I start there. Darling is a bit more of a third tall, probably play him out of the goal square to be honest, and let Allen and Waterman play a little bit higher. Keep Marrick in the team, behind the centre line, try him in a little bit of a new role, get Jack Williams back into the waffle. He's played 20 games of AFL now. He still needs to develop physically. I think there's still, he's still at the position where he can develop in the waffle. So then you go through the mid-sized options and you got Jamie Cripps, pretty much a walk-up start in my opinion, and Liam Ryan, who's really started to find some form and can obviously now play as a burst midfielder. We might see that a little bit more. Same thing with Jack Petruccelli. I don't think he was particularly good, post-ankle injury, but I think we've seen enough for him that he probably just keeps this spot. Now, who is he competing with? There's probably, there's Jack Hutchinson, who probably is a fairly similar comparison, in terms of style and position. Tyrell Dewar as well is probably the next cab off the rank off the top of my head. And both of those guys I'd be happy to see in the AFL team, but I think Petch probably starts there and then, has to work to retain that spot, but I think I'd probably just start there and cycle guys like Dewar in and Jack Hutchinson in when the opportunity arises. So that's when we go to our bench. I think Campbell Chesser, given, he's competing with other wingmen, there's probably Luke Edwards and Andrew Gaff, his direct competitors for this bench spot, and I think Chesser has come along nicely. I think we haven't really shown any indication that we're going to drop him. I think we're clearly investing in him to get used to the level, and I do think we are starting to see slow growth in this area. So we'll keep investing in Campbell Chesser. I'm happy with that. Tom Cole's probably the 7th defender. Probably just adds a little bit more defensively than a Witherden. But again, I do feel harsh leaving Witherden out of this team. I really do. And I probably don't expect him to get dropped. But this is just my team, isn't it? Jai Cully has earned his spot in the team. And I do like him in this team because he can play midfield. He can play forward. And therefore, gives us a little bit of versatility there. And is also, a young talent that is at the level of needing to play AFL to get more experience, to improve. So I'm happy that I found a spot for Jai Cully in this team, naturally winning a spot over someone like a Dom Sheed, respectfully. Bailey Williams, as I mentioned, will retain his spot as that third tall, but this is a wait and see, and I think should flex up and down. The amount of talls we have in this team should flex with who the opposition is, and, you know, things like conditions and like, is it going to rain? Do we need 2 rucks in the team? Jack Hutchinson makes my team as a sub as well. Again, I haven't really seen a lot of him, but he's obviously playing pretty good at, well, firstly VFL and waffle level. So I think, you know, there's a case to be made for him at 22, being ready for AFL. Versatile, ease him into the competition by giving him games as the sub. Obviously, he had a quiet game against North Melbourne. Again, you know, there's some other options you can consider for sub. You know, Harvey Johnston's played a couple of games at the level. Tyrell Dewar. I want the more physically ready option than someone like a Johnston. Like, Johnston hasn't even turned 19 yet. He's literally a baby. Not literally. That's the wrong use of the word literally. But that is my 23, guys. Few unlucky people, and that's a good sign. The cruel reality of picking best 22s and 23s is that you're probably never going to see all of them on the field at the same time. Touch wood. I hope that is the case, but, you know, in this analysis, I've only eliminated Elijah Hewitt and Rat Bazzo, and then other than that, picked on overall quality, and, you know, that's probably unrealistic. So it might look a little bit too experienced, you know, almost like, is that enough youngsters in the team? My response would simply be that this is the idealistic best 23 with a bit of youth and generally equipped to win games of football. We do expect that injuries and suspensions will play their part, and you will see some more youth throughout the team. It's not like this 23 is going to play, you know, indefinitely. But anyway, guys, that is my thoughts on the mix. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Anything you agree with or disagree with. I'm sure we're all going to see it a little bit differently. You know, touch wood, we're only a couple of weeks away from more or less seeing all of these guys available. Like, Oscar Allen should be back. If it's not the Essendon game, it'll probably be the week after. He might be in the waffle for at least one. We'll see what happens there. But, you know, Reid will be back from suspension by the time Hawthorn comes around, and Hunt and Kelly, I'm still hoping play against Essendon. But for now, I am looking forward to your input, and I'll see you next one, guys. Cheers.